Hello, 24 authors in 12 hours. Listeners, I am so excited. I'm here with our final author of the day. She wrote this book, Less. And what I am going to tell you is, oh my gosh, I was reading this the other night to the point where I went to sleep with my book and my Kindle actually version, not this one, or it'd be all tore up. I'm going to share a passage in out of this a little bit later, but if you are looking for dystopian, post-apocalyptic, super freaky, where you're like, what is going to happen? I'm on the edge of my seat. These people could all die at any minute. This is the book that you want to read. Welcome, Caroline. How are you doing?
I'm really well. It's a very cold but beautiful morning here in rural Victoria in Australia.
So you're living in tomorrow. Like you are literally like my future. Can you tell me the future?
Yes, don't worry about the world ending today because we're in tomorrow. We know it goes on, and there's not a cloud in the sky here. I've been out to feed my horses. I have beautiful Arabian horses. It's stunning. If anyone ever looks for a holiday, you've got to come to Australia. It is just the most beautiful place in the world to live.
I was unfortunate enough that the one time I went to visit Australia, the first time, I actually been there twice now, but the first time was Canberra. And everybody told me, like, oh no, the capital's like the worst. Like your face just said it all. And tell people,
Very,
like,
very clinical, very, yeah, it's just clean. And look, it's a nice place, but there's not much to do there. There's so much all along the east coast. You've got Queensland, our Gold Coast, our theme parks. You've got Sydney, which you've seen in all the movies, Melbourne, which is the coffee cafe culture, entertainment, sports, very big theatre culture. It's like your Broadway, is here. It's beautiful, and our countryside is amazing. But you're not here to talk about it. I just
no, but
love
it's
it.
just, we started with Australia, we're ending with Australia, and this has been very much a global, international 12-hour book festival, which has been incredible. We've had guests
And
from
kudos to you.
Wales. What's
Kudos
that?
to you to bring this all together. That's amazing. Such an amazing feat.
It is so fun, and I will tell you, my favorite part is when authors send me books, and I love touching the books. I love holding the books, and in my writing, I actually embrace the term. I'm like, I love being like what they call a book whore. I would rather be sleeping with my books, and and you know this. So let's talk about you. You are a prolific author. I'm featuring one little book here, which I'm going to go ahead and get out and share that in the link that we're going to talk about first. But then I'm going to also make sure I share all your socials because you have written some amazing things. But what inspired this book, Less?
This is probably my weirdest inspiration. All the other books I can pick up, I can tell you exactly where they came from. This one I started writing. We just started COVID. People were getting locked down. We didn't know really where we were, but remember those every city had them, the pictures in the news reports of the empty streets where there's absolutely no one around, or you might see a dog or a bit of newspaper. And we've all had those dreams or the imaginings of, what if I'm the only person left on earth? What if everyone disappears? What would I do? How would I survive? So initially I started the book. I was almost, and you can kind of tell when you start reading it that I'm setting up characters. I didn't know what I was doing with them. I was just writing a story. It was then that these images appeared, that I woke up the next morning and thought, that's it. These people are going to definitely just, everyone's disappearing. And I went on from there. As far as creatures, etc., that all came later. It just evolves. I'm what you call a pantser, so I pretty much write as I think about it.
I love that you use that term. I've used that term throughout the day and tried to like make sure people know what it means for the people who didn't. But for if you're listening, this is the only segment you're listening to. Pantsers are people who fly by the seat of their pants, whereas there's the people who are like the architects and the orchestrators, and then there's the hybrids. I've definitely become more and more of a hybrid where I have to have like a general plan, but then there's like some of my characters take over, and I definitely want to talk about that in this book. And it was good to hear this kind of like the behind the scenes piece, because there's points in this book where it's like different aspects are coming out. Are there any characters in here where you're like, I had no idea that character was going to be a big deal, but they just got a lot of page time?
In this one, no, I really wanted to flesh out the characters. I tend to introduce characters as I go along. Um, I know some people find that confusing to have multiple characters, but it is something that a lot of other authors, like Stephen King himself, will do that in these big books like The Stand. I like to watch shows, movies, and read books where I've got a lot of people in. In that particular book, I didn't have a character that mainly stood out, but it was the animals that really came to shine. I didn't think that Fifi the dog would be a big character, but she really came in. I love animals. I was very, very sure that I wanted to have a dog on the front cover. So for me, it had to be like including dogs in there. There is a little scene where you'll read of Daisy. Are you up to that yet with Daisy, the dog that runs ahead?
Is Daisy's the dog, the Labrador Retriever who cries all the time?
That's right.
Okay, yeah.
And there was a fellow author just put up a writing prompt on his Facebook of Daisy leaps ahead or Daisy runs ahead, and we all had to write a paragraph. And that actual first paragraph you have in the book was from a couple of years ago of that dog Daisy, and Daisy recently passed away, so it was nice to have an homage to her in there. But I never intended to have so many animals in the book and to have Marshmallow the parrot and just so many creatures in there that survive. You'll find a cow, and I didn't know the cow was going to be in the book. The cow just happened to be in the book. So we have even a cow in this, urban dystopian story. You have a lot of animals. So they were, for me, the runaway characters.
And you have the pigeon, because no matter what, you still got to have a pigeon in the end because
I think every city in the world has pigeons. If you have a city, you have pigeons.
Yeah, and so I thought it was great. Like you cut down the pigeon population, but there are still pigeons.
Not many though, not many.
So I just have to say one thing I love about this book is the level of mystery. So you are a horror author, and I'm going to read a little excerpt from the book. And one thing I tell the listeners to the show is I don't like to go too deep into the book. I don't want to give you spoilers. So, but I do love to just kind of get this vibe. And what I want to say too is I am not normally a big fan of kids, but the way you wrote this, I was like, okay, I am 100% all in because what is going on in this dystopian world? So here we go. Mommy. No one answered, and Harry started to bounce up and down in his crib. Mommy, 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 he called. It was the only word he really knew well, that and juice, but he knew calling mommy would get an answer quicker than calling out for juice. He was cold, and he was wet, and he was hungry. He bounced up and down some more and then started to cry. He could cry pretty loud, and he did. His hunger and his anger at being neglected, something he wasn't used to, making him cry all that much harder. The more he cried, the hungrier he felt, and he screamed and he squalled and he bawled. But mommy didn't come. Harry started to get frightened. He never been left to cry, never been left alone like this. He pulled himself up to the sides of the crib and peered through. Mommy slept in the big bed next to his crib, but mommy wasn't there. Mommy never got up during the night unless Harry cried. Harry was crying now, but mommy didn't come. He was now soaked right through his clothes, his diaper more than full, and he was cold and hungry and very upset. Harry cried until he was nothing more than a bundle of snot and sobs. Finally falling to sleep, exhausted and hungry, he only slept for about a half hour, and when he woke again, his delicate baby skin had started to burn from the urine and the feces that filled his diaper and now leaked into the crib. He called for his mommy, and he cried, rattled the bars of his crib, and he cried some more. Exhaustion set, and he fell asleep again, his body racked with sobs as he sucked his thumb, snot and saliva mixing. Flies now started to buzz around the mess leaking from his pants. Oh, I mean, I don't even, like I said, I mean, you just read that and you're like, this is not a good world to live in. So what do you want your audience to feel when they read this book?
I think that so many times we think, what if I'm the only person left on the earth, or all these people, because the premise of the book is 95% of everyone on earth has disappeared. But it's indiscriminate. You have people in nursing homes, you have people in the middle of an operation, you have babies in their cribs. What happens to them? Because there's nobody around. No one can hear his cries because everyone's gone. What happens to this child? So I want the bleakness and the overriding terror of a situation, even from a baby's point of view that has no comprehension, no perspective, to come on. Why am I alone? I've never known a bad day in my life, but where's my mummy? Where's everybody that I know and love and comfort me? And his bewilderment and his fear. I don't know if you've read on and know what happens to Harry, but I wanted that to be a surprise as well, because there are unlikely saviors in the world, but they're also devastating times. You know,
So I'm not going to give away who saves Harry. I gave something away that Harry is not going to die, at least at this point of the book. But
characters are hard to kill. It's very hard to kill a baby, even though I'm a horror author. It is hard to kill babies. I don't, in my books, like I have one that's almost as popular as that one, but it's very, very brutal.
Which book is
I
that?
do. This is called Exist.
Exist.
So it's
okay.
also dystopian, and it's very, very brutal. But I don't like. There's trigger warnings for things like sexual assault, but I don't describe it. As in the book you have there, Les. I don't describe children dying. I don't describe animals getting, apart from one, but it is in the storyline, and it needs to be in that storyline. But I don't like to describe those things because there's no need. There's enough horror in the world, and the overreaching arc of my book is to get people to see, if at the end of the world, when there's hardly anybody there, when there is less of us, let's throw aside religion and homophobia and hate, racism, all those things. No more bigotry. Let's just be a community. Let's just all be there for each other. So I don't, as much as that's a horror book and it's got scary and it's got monsters, etc., I wanted to be a book of hope, of getting you out there and thinking, well, yes, I would be a decent human being. I wouldn't be a Ralph, which is a term for, once you've read the book, you know what a Ralph is.
Exactly. And, and there's like you said, a horrible character. And, it's always amazing in the post-apocalyptic dystopian futures where you're like, look, there's plenty of resources now because there's no people. There's no point of killing people anymore. There's like not a lot left. But It seems like there are always those people that you have to be aware of.
There is. But I didn't want to get caught in the trap of, I think so many shows we watch, and it's everything from the shows we love, from The Walking Dead, to any vampire shows, sparkly vampires, etc. There's always this overarching arc of some secret scary government or council or whatever that looks after everyone, or there's some hidden agendas and things. I didn't want to have that. I want to write from every man's point of view. I wouldn't know what was happening if that happened. I'm just a normal human being. I'm not part of the government. I don't have, some secret insight into something. I would be in the middle of what the heck is going on now. And also, I want this to be a total devastation. There is no government hiding somewhere in a bunker that has survived. This is just what we don't know if there is or not in this book. There is no factions of armies or things coming along. It's just people trying desperately to survive.
And I think that comes through so clear. And, I've never read anybody just kind of write that perspective, like from this little toddler, little kind of baby before. And I just thought, like, this is interesting. Like, this is not something that you read every day.
I try and give you, when I sit in a point of view, I want to be in that point of view. I want you to have that immersion. So you will have characters that are elderly women, my age group, from men. I have so many people say, I know your name's Caroline, but I really didn't think you were a woman because you write men so well, or you have a lot of male characters. I have a lot of people surprised I'm Australian because a lot of my books are set in America. And so you'll probably pick up little things that I did get wrong, but for 99% of the time, I think I'm okay. I do have my editors that do go through and make sure that all my vernacular is correct, etc. I never name towns either, or places. They're always an enigma. You don't know exactly where it's at. It's just a large city. It's just a large town. Or I'll make up a name because I don't know the area enough to say, well, we're in New York City, because I don't know New York City. I've never been to America. So I've got
You've
to
never
just
been to America. That is super fascinating.
yeah. And it's the thing is we get so much television shows, movies and books, etc., that you feel like you know somewhere even though you've never been there. We're immersed in your culture even without ever stepping foot on the ground.
No, that is, yeah, I would have totally thought that you'd at least been someplace, in the United States writing this, because this is definitely a book where you're just like, you get this kind of small town, mid-sized town vibe going on to it. And so, I mean, kudos. Let's talk a minute. You mentioned editors, and you for people who have not been tracking on Caroline Angel's work, this is like amazing. Like, she is a prolific author. I put her Amazon link in there. I need to put the rest of her links in here. Your writing journey, what first inspired you to write, and what has kept you going on writing?
I started writing as a very small child. I can't tell you when I first started writing. It was, that early. I had a very, very strong religious upbringing, a nice one. It was a cult religion. And we weren't allowed to read anything except religious tracts and Bibles, etc. So thankfully, broke away from that. I did start writing. I won a few competitions. I got published in a couple of magazines, but then I married very young. He didn't like it. Life took over, then you're divorced, you've got 3 young children. I literally did not start writing again until a friend said, a Facebook friend, I've won a competition for writing. And I thought, let me read it. I read the story and I thought, it's so hubris, but I thought I can actually do better than this. I can do it. I need to get back to what I used to do. So the next month I won the competition. And then I started putting stories. There was a lot more, 12, 15 years ago, there was a lot more places online to submit your work, to win competitions. I won computers. I won an iPhone, like an iPhone 2, I think. I did really, really well. Then I started putting chapter by chapter stories. I did a bit of fan fiction. And I actually got picked up when I was about 2/3 of the way through, or not even that, maybe a third of the way through my very first book. I got offers from a publisher and I published traditionally through this small publisher. So I am very, very fortunate that way. I have not had to search and find someone to look after my work. I've only ever been traditionally published, so I can't talk about the roots of self-publishing, but I'm sure some of your other people did. I've gone through several publishers just for various reasons. They've shifted into a different direction. They over diversified and went broke. So I am so lucky. My publisher now that has done the majority of my work is Red Cape Publishing. They are amazing. He's a horror author himself. He offered to pick up my book and help me get it from a publisher that was hanging on to it. Up until I met this publisher, I had never seen a cent in royalties, not 1 cent. So just to, you think you're safe going through traditional publishing. I outsold Stephen King on 2 separate occasions with one of my books. Never saw a cent. Now, even this publisher I'm with now, he was promoting my work with, he called it Books of Blood. I think he had a monthly book subscription scheme. And he said, you must be making a heap of money. I'm selling so much of your book. Now, I haven't seen a cent, Peter, not a cent. So that's why he came in. He'd started up his own imprint. I'm now with him. I will never be with anyone else, whether he likes it or not. I'm staying there. And I'm at the point, he is so lovely where I can say, Peter, I've written a new book. And I'll get 2 answers. I'll either be, I'll slot that in for whatever the next few months are. So he just accepts it without even looking at it. Or he'll say, is it less too, the lesserer? Because everyone wants a sequel to this particular book you're holding at the moment. So I have a very fortunate journey there. So I wish I had have started earlier. I can't say I would have been as successful had I done that. But to not publish till I was in my 50s, and then to just know that every book I write, as long as I'm writing quality stuff, it's going to be published. That is a really wonderful way to feel.
Yeah, we've definitely had a lot of indie authors and a lot of discussion about traditional publishing versus self-publishing and the amount of control authors have. And it sounds like you have really found like the best of both worlds in this environment you have. But also, that kind of, buyer beware that you go in traditional publishing, like you said, and that you didn't make a cent for years. And that's not exactly ideal, right? Especially for authors who want to try to make a living at writing.
This is it. I was working another job many, many hours, and it was very difficult to write. Mind you, I did do due diligence with a couple of them, but unfortunately, one had been a really famous publishing company, but they'd handed it down to an offspring of theirs who then just ruined it. So even though it came highly recommended and still has, I don't know why, but still has a really good name out there, but we all were treated abysmally. As in, like, respect to her, she just didn't know what she was doing. She shouldn't have taken it on. But there were others that were very unscrupulous, and it's very sad. The first person I published with, I didn't have a bad experience as such. There was no marketing or anything, and every cent they spent to prepare the book, all my royalties went to pay them back. So it's the same as if you get an advance, and I have had advances from publishers. You don't get any money until that advance has been used up, basically. So any money that the book is making to sell pays off that advance you've been made. But then to know that you've outsold Stephen King, who must sell, millions of books pretty much weekly, on 2 occasions, and never see a cent of that, never know, except that it came up on Amazon that, that's what I'd done, because you can set up your own author page no matter how you're published. But yeah, it is. Do your due diligence, and you've been speaking a lot, I noticed today, about the scammers and getting ripped off. And I think we are lucky with social media today, even though it's introducing a lot of scammers into our life, you also have the ability to post out there and say, has anyone heard of, or has anyone done? And you'll get 100 people telling you their experience or where to go to look for the legitimacy in this situation.
That is super interesting. I just read a post, and I'm not going to share any names. It's a women's writers group woman. And somebody said, hey, I'm looking for work in editing. And then one of the responses was, if you're looking for work in editing, I would suggest that you post more professionally, because there's like literally 2 errors in what you just posted looking for editing. And I thought that the person who pointed that out was trying to do a favor, but it definitely created a lot of controversy within the group. But I thought, like, if I want to be a writer, I'm not going to post the same kind of text that I'm going to send my sister, like, hey, are you on the way? Right? Like, I'm going to post something professional. I would never show anybody a text I would write my sister. It would just be like embarrassing, unless I was trying to show in my writing this very informal texting culture. And so I think that is such an important point that you're making about, you have this social media, but you have a social media persona that you have to keep as well.
Oh, very much so. It's difficult for me because I'm very opinionated, and I don't like, or I can't tolerate bullshit and people that'll come out there and say horrible things. And you can tell from reading less what I think about people who are bigoted and full of hate and misogynist, etc. So if somebody says something horrible, I want to react. And as an author, you can't. You've got to step back. You've got to realize now that that's going to affect your sales. That's going to affect everything in your life that you do now. And I know you see this with everything from TV stars through to sports stars. Your personal life impacts your professional life so strongly. We have to not be a J.K. Rowling. We have to step back and just be our product. Now, there's a very famous quote, if I won't bring up other names, but the death of the author is a very famous passage where readers can separate what they know from the author and just read the story as it is. So it's not wondering where I'm coming from or what the author intended with this, or the author's having an affair with someone else. It is just read the book and take the story for the story. Michael Jackson, ignore what he did and just listen to his music. But people aren't like that. As much as you want to say, ignore who I am and just read my books, people are going to be influenced by what I do, what I say, how I present myself. So I very much, when I, even today, it's Sunday morning here, and instead of being in my pajamas or in my riding gear, I've dressed. It's freezing, so I'm dressed in a big jumper, but I've tried to dress nice and present myself. When I go to events, and I go to a lot of events, one of your previous authors, Petra Costa, and I tend to share, because it's just nice to share a table. Someone's there when you go to the toilet, but I will present. I will have my top hat on. I will have my gothic-y outfit. You present yourself as, this is my position. Same as if you're going in to see your doctor, you don't want to see him sitting there in his golf gear or his rugby shirt. You want to see someone in his scrubs or his professional look, your lawyer with your tie. We have to present in all our ways. We have to be professional and show people that's who we are. If you're very pink and you're very pretty, I'm assuming, just without reading anything, you look at, you go, oh, you must write about women or about, maybe romance or that sort of thing. Me, it's pretty obvious, to look at me and think, well, we're this probably reading into the Gothic, something there. I think we need to present. We need to remember that this is what we want to do as a job. This is who we want to be. Let's present ourselves that way.
Caroline, I just want to, bam, you've hit such an important thing, and you have to present, and you have to be aware you're an author, and I consider none of my pages personal anymore. Like, I used to be like, well, this is my personal page. I'm like, no, people, it's all messed up. I do try to separate my genres because I think it confuses people. I don't want to hide that I write multi-genre, but I think there's a very different thing between, I'm going to read the book horror universe and read about brothels and this dystopian fiction versus, and here's some business books, right? Like, these are two different things. And so I do write under a pen name for that word, but I do I'm very aware that even as a writer, there's certain things I don't want to cross, because I think that then just muddies everything, So, I want to talk to you forever. And I realize, like, we are at the end of the time. So I'm going to just real quick post to everybody. First of all, thank you. 24 authors, 12 hours. We are at the very end of this marathon session. If you like the content, if you are interested in donating, we would love to have you. But this is an author supporting author event. We ask for nothing. What we just want to do is get the work out there that amazing authors are doing and share that. We do have new merch. Very excited. So if you want to buy a coffee mug, buy a water bottle, these are out there. I did just mention my new book. It is available online at no cost today in the EPUB version. It's available on Kindle Unlimited all the time. And that book, once again, dystopian fiction, but a very different kind of dystopian fiction, really written as speculative fiction in 2055. And it takes the current environment of 2025, with the Librarian of Congress being fired, with the U.S. archivist being fired, with heads of different museums from the Smithsonian being fired, and kind of looks at this concept of, with all this data being erased, what is this future where data is controlled and people trying to look back and figure out the history to figure out where they are now? So it is another concept on this is that the Native American Museum here in the United States, and this goes back into digging some history on it and being very specific, was actually built on the site of a brothel. So what ends up happening is, because of the DEI initiatives have been revoked, they decided it's a better use for it to go back to being a brothel. And so super just kind of interesting concepts. In no way, this is just speculative fun fiction to read. Go out there, though, read Caroline's books. I put all her socials out there. This book lasts, oh my gosh, I'm just letting you know, every single thing that you think is going to happen, it doesn't. And there's just so many different elements to it. I also flagged your other dystopian book to make sure I read it. I have such a big reading list. It's summer here, so I'm not going to get around to it till winter. But I will say is I'm looking forward to that cold weather season where I have an excuse to do nothing but sit around and bundle up and read books. Caroline, what do you want to add? Because you are closing out our day.
I'm closing out. I want to, my latest book out is The Dead Spot. I think I'm coming to you reverse. That's set in Australia, so it gives you a little glimpse of Australia as well. So if you do like a dystopian lean, no blood, no gore. So it is something that's a bit different. It is very, and there's no monsters, no slasher killer people. It is something very, very different. So you can write within genres, but push that to the limit. So the world is literally your limit. Take what you like and just go with it.
The Dead Spot, I just put this in here. Check that out. It's also on Kindle Unlimited if you have a Kindle Unlimited account. Caroline, any last thoughts? We are closing out 12-hour marathon session of interviews.
You must be exhausted. Thank you on behalf of all the authors. We appreciate so much what you've done for us. This is such an amazing thing. I do think you need support with this. It's such a long time for you to sit there totally unpaid, promoting all of us, and we'd love to have our voices out there. Thank you. This is, like everyone else listening, whether you're a reader or an author, this is our passion. This is what we love. We love telling stories. We love to be engaging with the audience. So definitely support Amy in any way, shape, or form you can, even if it's reading the book, not donating, but a free book. Nothing wrong with a free book.
Read the book and write a review. That's all you want for Christmas as an author, is write reviews.
100%.
And I'm going to leave one more thing, which is October 11th, a Saturday, is going to be the next 24 authors in 12 hours. And because it's going to be October, right before Halloween, it's going to be all things horror, all things scary, crime, thrillers, all these kinds of things. And Caroline is also an expert in these areas, so we might be having her back if we can convince her to. Thank you so much, everyone.